Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Restrictions are being placed on New Year festivities around the world as many countries struggle to curb new spikes in coronavirus cases. New Zealand was the first country in the world to celebrate the arrival of the new year, but fireworks displays and other public gatherings have been cancelled in many other places, from Sydney to New York. Festivities are being particularly muted in Europe amid fears over a new, more contagious strain of the disease, and France has mobilised 100,000 police to break up New Year's Eve parties and enforce a new nighttime curfew. More than 1.8 million people have died with the virus across the world, and more than 81 million cases have been reported so far. About 900 migrants from South Asia and other regions are struggling in bitter cold temperatures at a burnt-out camp in Bosnia-Herzegovina after being denied proper shelter. The migrants remain at Lipa, a camp gutted by fire last week in the country's northwest, amid a dispute over moving them to a military barracks. Videos showed them trekking through woods with their belongings after buses supposed to transfer them were blocked in the hope to reach Croatia. The European Union and aid agencies have warned of a humanitarian crisis as the migrants lack basic necessities. The death toll of yesterday's attack in the airport of Aden in Yemen has risen to at least 22, with more than 50 people wounded. There was at least one major explosion shortly after a plane carrying newly formed Yemeni government arrived from neighbouring Saudi Arabia. Agencies report at least 3 mortar shells exploded on the airstrip after the government plane had landed. Aid workers and officials were among the casualties, but the Prime Minister said he and his cabinet were fine. The Information Minister accused Houthi rebels of a cowardly terrorist attack. At least 2 people have died in Peru after protesters faced off with police in a push for a salary increase. According to local media, the tense scenes spilled over as police arrived at the protest, where demonstrators were blocking a major highway. Farm labourers from major agro-exporter companies are calling for more pay and better working conditions. Negotiations between the government and protest leaders have failed to reach a solution. It's been the last day for the UK in the European Union, with the end of the Brexit transition period coinciding with the end of 2020. The UK has put to an end their 48-year membership with the bloc, having joined in 1973. In the 2016 referendum, 52% of voters backed the country's exit from the EU. A commercial deal was reached on December the 24th.
And having taken back control of our money, our borders, our laws...
Prime Minister Boris Johnson told Parliament he hoped for a new relationship with the EU post-divorce, but not everyone is convinced, as French European Affairs ministers said Britain is punishing itself with Brexit. Ghana's main opposition candidate in the presidential election held on December the 7th has filed a petition at the Supreme Court seeking to annul the incumbent re-election.
My pledge throughout my time of service.
Former President John Mahama says he lost unfairly to President Nana Akufo-Addo, citing electoral irregularities, and arguing that both of them did not attain a clear majority. According to the Electoral Commission, Mr. Addo garnered 51.5% of the votes, while Mr. Mahama got 47.4%. Meanwhile, the ruling parties are also planning to challenge some parliamentary results after the final tally confirmed a hung parliament. Opposition parties in the Central African Republic have called for a rerun of last Sunday's election, saying it was marred by insecurity and fraud. 10 parties, known as the Democratic Opposition Coalition, have said only about a third of all voters were able to take part. The country is still extremely fragile as a result of the civil war that broke out after a coup in 2013, and militias still control about 2/3 of the country. In the days before the election, some of the militias launched an offensive and advanced towards the capital Bangui in what appeared to be an attempt to postpone the vote. Hong Kong's highest court has ruled in favour of prosecutors' request for leave to appeal against Jimmy Lai's already highly restrictive bail order, meaning he will be in jail until at least February. That's despite the 73-year-old not being accused of a violent crime or considered a flight risk. Mr. Lai, the founder of the Apple Daily newspaper, is accused of conspiring with foreign forces to endanger national security. He spent the last week under house arrest after securing bail, but prosecutors won their appeal to re-imprison the media mogul. And finally, the 7-time Formula One world champion Lewis Hamilton has been awarded a knighthood in a UK New Year's Honours List. The 35-year-old this year became the most successful Formula One driver of all time. The sports-only black driver, who grew up in social housing as the grandson of immigrants from the Caribbean, has also used his profile to campaign for diversity and speak out against racial injustice. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.